And I got a call from an old U.S. Secret Service agent who was a co-student of mine with a martial arts instructor who taught U.S. Secret Service agents the bodyguard trade once upon a time, and has taught U.S. Special Forces hand-to-hand close-quarters combat at Fort Benning in Georgia, SEALs and Green Beret. Anyway, he had talked to the teacher to run me down, and I got called to stop, and he said, in essence, another false flag has happened, but this one is very critical. And I got called in, and Aurora sits just east of downtown in Denver off I-70, so I go in there, and we just watch Homeland Security dressed as cops, groomed people being interviewed on mass media, telling about all these bad things that happened in Aurora, and this doped-up guy that they took away named James Holmes, whose daddy was breaking testimony on DARPA and some really nasty black technology, among other things. But I think Holmes disappeared and was set up to be captured as the fall guy so that it would shut his daddy up from telling about DARPA and all these other things. Anyway, the theater was not shot up to shreds like people thought, but inside there, after Homeland Security dressed cops and other people split, then what was there was a place that was not too shot up, but proof of over 70 people taken out by a very well-coordinated death crew of about 4 men that operate this way, and they came in and came out really quick around midnight when that movie was shown, and popped in several different things, you know, like malls that have several different movie theaters in one building. Well, that's what it was, but several of the different theater sections were shot out, and these people were taken out very quickly, very efficiently, and then they found this doped-up guy, James Holmes, with a Glock 40 caliber pistol, which is very important because the 40 caliber was developed by the FBI with Winchester and unveiled in 1990 for the civilian sector of intel and cops. And that was a warning sign that this thing was tied to the civilian sector, not the military, or it would have been like a 9mm or a 45 automatic, which are military issue in essence, but not the 40 caliber Glock. And the other thing was AR-15, a semi-automatic rifle, which anybody that shot a semi-automatic knows that you cannot squeeze your trigger finger back and forth that many times to take out 72 people that fast. One man who has never been trained in firearms, and some people in the conspiracy thing have tried to say, well, he was Monarch programmed to be a serial killer. No way. You cannot take somebody untrained in firearms and weapons and ballistics and with a semi-automatic rifle that's prone to jam like the AR-15 to take out 72 people that fast and disappear. That was a well-oiled operation of false flags, and a very methodic death crew came in, probably 4 people, took them out using a personal defense weapon, the FN P90, and the bullet fragments can look like a .223 because it is a .22 caliber sized bullet, but the PDW, personal defense weapon, was also developed in the 90s, and this is a very low recoil weapon that can be used in close quarters very efficiently, where a normal machine gun or a AR-15, the barrel would rise if you shot it. You know, you couldn't shoot it accurately, and then pumped on adrenaline and fear, and never been trained in firearms. James Holmes is a fall guy, and he was doped up on dope called scopolamine that's been used in Monarch MK for a long time out of Colombia.
So there wasn't MK Ultra component to it, but
yes.
Okay. But why?
Holmes disappeared and was doped up to be the fall guy to shut his daddy up on one side.
Okay. On one side.
From exposing DARPA and other things that he was tied to. So Holmes is the fall guy taking the heat for what a very well-oiled death crew did. Right after that, the Sikh temple was shot up, and one of the guys was military, but the cops did take the one guy out. And also, it didn't work as well. And they have had other false flags happen, Sandy Hook and you name them, the Boston Marathon.
Right.
These are all false flags and everything that happened. But what I found was, out of that, I learned that there were interagency wars with each other, and intel agencies are at war with Homeland Security, who are America's Gestapo via the Patriot Act, in a nutshell. And intel agencies that have patriots do not get along with Homeland Security. And there were cops there that were Homeland Security dressed as cops and everything, and definitely tied to it. And when they dropped a Glock, that exposed Homeland Security, who had just happened to buy millions of rounds of .40 caliber ammunition. Millions of rounds. We picked out fragments of bullets indicating a PDW. The .40 caliber Glock, civilian sector, not military. Homeland Security buys all these .40 caliber bullets, millions of rounds, and everything for law enforcement, but Homeland Security, who are America's Gestapo today. And there are interagency wars, because I get called by this guy to go in, and we see the aftermath, which was very clean. It was a very efficient black op. And they just disappeared into the night, taking out 70 people, over 10 dead. It was a very polished black op.
I do have a question about the shooter, sir. James Holmes, and I'm not sure the statistics of mass shooters, and I know most of them kill themselves or have a suicide by cop. He just kind of turned himself in, or was just standing there.
Well, he was just standing there, but he was extremely doped up on scopolamine and had no memory of it. And
Wow.
I sent you guys a link to it. Basically, we looked at it in the aftermath. We watched all the false media and groomed people telling about what happened to scare people. While Holmes had been carted off, was doped up on scopolamine, is still doped up, and they grew a beard on him to make him look like an Islamic terrorist, and now he's a convert to Islam, and he's just an MK puppet and everything, sitting there taking the heat. But he did not pull off that. Holmes was not the shooter. That was a well-polished death crew, and those theaters in there where the shootings happened were not shot up and shredded, But low recoil personal defense weapons like the P90 that can imitate with a .22 caliber size bullet the AR-15 or M16 was what was used, and the .40 caliber pistols, yes. And the death crew disappeared, and they found the doped up Holmes. He was not the shooter. And so digging the fragments up, proof of this was done, and research done by attachments and friends in the U.S. Texas Rangers down in Texas. My teacher is also an honorary Texas Ranger down there. And so this was all looked at, who helped me out. I turned in a report that led me being called out to Washington, D.C., and some things out there that I can't really, because I had to sign a Disclosure Act, which is essentially the U.S. Secrecy Act, to keep my mouth shut about details of it.
That.
But I got called to D.C. Sometimes we had to meet in the Library of Congress, looking at microfiche, to get any privacy and all. And I was summoned out there, and based on the report that I had turned in to them, and I got called out on this, and then I released an article that I could disclose as much as I could. It was called Military versus Civilian Sector Black Ops. Aurora Revisited True Grit Style. There are videos there that show what a personal defense weapon looks like, how it operates in ballistics. There is a video there on scopolamine, the dope that Holmes is doped up on. You can watch, and you'll understand well what it is. It is at Truth News Info, run by John Vodilla, a very serious truther and all, who I endorse, much like Jay and Amy DiMichelli of No One Has to Die Tomorrow. They are genuine. They have given of their own free lives to the truther movement that's real,